What would you say if a cop told you to step to the back of your car right now? If you say the wrong thing first, you can hand them control fast. And once you move without locking in your words, your court fight gets much harder. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could save you from a charge, a search, or a huge mistake you can't take back. Smash like now so you can find this again before a real traffic stop ever happens to you. You're about to learn the one line you should say before you move an inch. You're going to hear the mistake drivers make when they confuse compliance with surrender. You're going to learn the question that forces an officer to show their hand. And you're going to hear the exact sentence that can stop you from giving away consent by accident. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and you keep seeing the same pattern. The driver thinks the stop is small. Then the officer says, "Step to the back." That one moment changes the whole feel of the stop. Your heart speeds up, your brain gets loud, and your mouth starts working against you. Let me show you exactly how to slow that whole scene down and protect yourself without acting rude, scared, or aggressive. Now think about what usually happens to you in that moment. You're already nervous. Your hands feel weird. Your voice sounds shaky. The officer is standing there, maybe with one hand near a flashlight or a belt. Then they say, "Step to the back with me." Most people have no idea that this is the point where simple stops often turn into fishing trips. You think moving is the only issue. It's not. Your words right before you move matter just as much as your feet. Here's the reality. Drivers start talking to fill the silence. They start apologizing. They start guessing why they got stopped. They start saying things like, "I didn't do anything," or "There's nothing in the car." That is how you build a case against your own interests. Your job is not to win the roadside conversation. Your job is to stay safe, stay calm, and stop helping them expand the stop. The first thing you do is separate compliance from consent. That is the core move. When the officer says, "Step to the back," you do not argue. You do not freeze. You do not start asking 10 questions in a row. Here's exactly what you say. "Officer, I will comply. I do not consent to any searches." Word for word. Memorize that line. Those two sentences do huge work for you. The first half keeps the stop calm. The second half protects your record. You are showing that you will follow the physical instruction, but you are not giving permission for anything extra. That difference can save you later. A lot of drivers think if they comply, they must stay silent about their rights. Wrong. You can comply and still protect yourself. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it makes the body cam video clean. It shows you were not resisting. It shows you were not escalating. It also shows you did not hand over consent by fear, confusion, or pressure. That matters because once an officer gets you out of the car, the odds of more questions and more requests go way up. If you never drew the line, that line gets drawn for you. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Okay, sure, whatever you need, I've got nothing to hide." Then the officer hears open permission and the stop gets wider fast. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I will comply. I do not consent to any searches." Then you stay cooperative, but you keep your rights on the record. Watch what happens when you use that line the right way. The tone often changes. Sometimes the officer moves on like nothing happened. Sometimes they push a little harder. Sometimes they ask, "Why not if you've got nothing to hide?" That question is a trap. You do not answer the trap. You repeat the line if needed. "I will comply. I do not consent to any searches." That is it. Short beats clever. Calm beats emotional, clean beats chatty. The legal backup is Pennsylvania versus Mimms. In plain English, the Supreme Court said an officer can order a driver out of a lawfully stopped car. So if you think your big win is refusing to step out, you're walking into a bad fight. But that same case does not mean you must give permission for a search. It does not mean you must start volunteering answers. It does not mean your rights vanished because you stepped out. Former police officers have confirmed this works because respectful compliance lowers tension, while your refusal keeps you from giving away more than the law requires. This is 100% legal. You are not resisting. You are not provoking. You are drawing a clean legal boundary. Think you could stay that calm when your door opens and the officer tells you to step back? Let me know in the comments because this is where most people lose control of their own mouth. Now let's talk about the second move, because this is where your words can really hurt you. Once you're standing at the back of the car, the officer often starts asking questions. Where are you coming from? Where are you headed? Is this your car? Have you had anything to drink? Is there anything illegal inside? Those questions may sound casual, but they are not small talk. They are building blocks. Here's exactly what you say. "Officer, I want to remain silent. I want a lawyer if this is a criminal investigation." Those exact words. Keep them ready. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. During a normal traffic stop, officers usually do not have to read you Miranda rights before roadside questions. A lot of drivers think silence only starts after handcuffs. That is dead wrong. If you wait for a warning that never comes, you may talk yourself into a bigger problem. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In Berkemer versus McCarty, the court said routine roadside questioning during a normal stop usually is not custody yet. In simple words, that means your answers can still matter a lot, even before the scene feels fully serious. Bad way. Most drivers say, I just came from my friend's place, I only had one drink, and there's nothing weird in the car. Then the officer hears alcohol, nerves, and extra details to test. Good way. Smart drivers say, Officer, I want to remain silent. I want a lawyer if this is a criminal investigation. Then you stop feeding the stop with your own words. Some people worry that saying this makes them look guilty. That is fear talking. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection because you cannot talk your way into safety once the stop starts sliding sideways. You can only reduce the damage. And no, you do not have to sound angry. You do not have to sound robotic. You do not have to argue about the Constitution on the shoulder. You just say the line and stay steady. If the officer keeps asking questions, you keep your answers limited to basic documents and safety instructions. If they ask where your wallet is, you answer that. If they ask where you are coming from, you use your line again. That is how you protect your record. I want you to notice something important here. Silence is not the same as being difficult. Silence is not the same as refusing lawful orders. Silence is not the same as disrespect. It is simply you choosing not to hand the government free evidence. That is why this line matters so much at the back of the car. That is where pressure rises. That is where nerves rise. And that is where people start filling the air with words they regret. This is 100% legal. Your right to stop answering is not a favor from the officer. It is your choice to use it. The third move is the question that snaps the stop back into focus. At some point, you need to know whether this is still a traffic stop or something bigger. You look at the officer and say this, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Those exact words. That question is powerful because it forces clarity. It makes the officer pick a lane. If you are free to go, the stop should end. If you are being detained, then they are saying they have a reason to keep you there. Either way, you get the fog out of the scene. Here's the reality. A lot of bad stops grow because nobody makes the officer say what stage the stop is in. You just stand there. More time passes. More questions come. Backup may arrive. A dog may show up. Suddenly, a warning ticket turned into 20 extra minutes on the roadside. That is why your question matters so much. You are not asking permission to be difficult. You are making the timeline visible. Bad way. Most drivers say, I guess I'll stay here and answer a few more things. Then the stop drifts, the officer keeps digging, and your risk keeps growing. Good way. Smart drivers say, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Then the officer must either end the stop or own the decision to hold you longer. Watch what happens when you ask it calmly. Sometimes the officer says, just hang tight, because they do not want to commit. Ask again a little later if needed, calmly, clearly. No sarcasm, no attitude. If they say you are free to leave, leave. Do not stay to prove you are nice. Do not keep chatting because you feel awkward. If they say you are detained, then stop volunteering anything else. That answer may matter later. The legal backup here is Rodriguez versus United States. In plain English, the Supreme Court said police cannot stretch a traffic stop longer than needed just to chase unrelated things unless they have a new legal reason. That matters for you because standing at the back of the car is often where delay starts. The ticket is nearly done, but the officer keeps circling. Your question helps mark the point where the traffic mission should end. Here's the reality. You are not trying to beat the officer in an argument. You are helping create a clean record about time, purpose, and delay. If you've made it this far, you're serious about protecting your rights. Show me by hitting that like button because the next part is where drivers accidentally give away the strongest protection they still have. The fourth move is what you say when the officer tries to turn that back of the car talk into a search. Maybe they ask to check your pockets. Maybe they ask to look inside the vehicle. Maybe they make it sound casual. You don't mind if I take a quick look, right? This is where you need one clean sentence ready. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. That is the full line. Nothing added, nothing softened, nothing joked about. A lot of drivers break here because the request sounds friendly. The officer may smile, the words may sound light, the question may sound like a formality, but your answer matters more than their tone. If you say yes, even weakly, even nervously, even because you think refusal looks bad, you may make the search much harder to fight later. That is why the clean refusal is so strong. You are not stopping the officer physically. You are not grabbing anything, you are not pulling away, you are simply refusing to help. Bad way. Most drivers say, if you want to, I guess that's okay. Then the search starts, and your own consent becomes the officer's shortcut in court. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Then the officer must rely on real legal grounds instead of your permission. The case you need to know is Schneckloth versus Bustamonte. In plain English, the Supreme Court said police do not have to prove you knew you could refuse before your consent counts. Read that again in simple words. If you say yes, the law may still treat that yes as valid, even if nobody explained your right to say no. That is why your refusal must be clear and out loud. Let me show you exactly what that means for your safety. If they search anyway, your refusal still helps. Your lawyer can later challenge whether the officer had lawful cause. But if you gave consent, that fight gets much harder. You are not trying to win the roadside moment. You are trying to protect your future defense. Now let's lock the law together so you can remember it under stress. Listen closely because this is critical. Pennsylvania versus Mimms says the officer can usually order you out of the car during a lawful stop. That means you should comply with the movement order. Berkemer versus McCarty says roadside questioning during a normal stop usually does not require Miranda first. That means you should not wait for a magic warning before using your silence. Rodriguez versus United States says the stop cannot be stretched just to fish for more unless there is a real new reason. That means your detention question matters. Schneckloth versus Bustamonte says consent can count even if you did not know you could refuse. That means your search refusal must be clear. Put that all together, and you get one simple rule for your stop. You comply with lawful movement. You do not volunteer answers. You ask whether you are detained, and you never hand over consent by accident. Now picture your own stop from start to finish. You are driving home after dark. Lights flash behind you. You pull over. You keep your hands visible. The officer comes up and says your taillight is out, then says, "Step to the back of the car." Wrong way first. You jump out fast. You start talking before the officer even asks. You say you were just trying to get home. You say you are nervous because cops always assume the worst. You laugh and say they can look if they want because there is nothing in there. Then the officer starts asking more. Now you are outside the car, talking too much, and the stop is growing because of your own words. Now the right way. The officer says, "Step to the back." You breathe once. You say, "Officer, I will comply. I do not consent to any searches." Then you move slowly and keep your hands visible. The officer starts asking where you are coming from. You say, "Officer, I want to remain silent. I want a lawyer if this is a criminal investigation." The officer keeps pressing. You stay calm. You do not fill the silence. When the ticket issue seems done but the talking keeps going, you say, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" If the officer asks to look in the car, you say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Watch what happens. The entire stop gets cleaner, your body cam record gets cleaner, your future defense gets stronger. You are not trying to outsmart the officer. You are protecting yourself with short, repeatable lines that work under pressure. Next week, I'm revealing what to say when cops ask you to unlock your phone on the roadside. Subscribe right now because that video could protect every private message, photo, and app on your device. So lock these 4 moves into your head right now. When the officer says step to the back, you comply without giving consent. When the questions start, you stop volunteering answers. When the stop drifts, you ask if you are detained or free to leave. And when the search request comes, you refuse clearly and calmly. That is your power. Not yelling, not arguing, not fake confidence, just short lines, clean timing, and control over your own words. Hit subscribe so you catch the phone search video before you ever need it. Smash that like button if this gave you a real plan for your next stop. And drop a comment telling me which exact line you're going to memorize first. Stay safe out there.